Well, hello and welcome to this discussion about Sudan. We have here today James Wilson, a journalist and publisher from EU Political Report. We got Anna Wandensky, who has more than 2.5 million views every month on YouTube, and the MEP Márton GYÖNGYÖSI. Welcome, everyone. Okay, so the situation in Sudan, of course, is tragic, and I don't think that we will be able to solve the problem today, but we'll just be able to exchange some views. As you know, in April there was supposed to have been an agreement for a new government, prime minister, and all the other ministers, and it didn't happen because on the 13th of April the civil war started. And it is very difficult for outsiders to understand what is happening. But I think that maybe we'll ask Márton to start, to explain a little bit. He has an international background. He's been living in Egypt and Iraq and Afghanistan, so he is probably the most knowledgeable about the culture of this in this part of the world.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm not sure how knowledgeable I am about Sudan itself, but I do have some experience from the region, and here in the European Parliament I'm member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I do follow everything that is diplomacy, foreign affairs, and especially in such crises a lot of attention and a lot of focus is put on the region. And I think in understanding Sudan, since its independence and to understand this current conflict, I think we have to go back to the long reign of al-Bashir and the collapse of his regime and the conflicts that have taken place in Sudan in the past couple of years, the conflict in Darfur, in the Darfur region, the reign of al-Bashir and his grip on power and building basically parallel structures within the army and the military. And when we are looking at this conflict, we can see a toppled dictator, al-Bashir, and the fight for power by two strong men who have been in charge of some parts of the military, one of them the official military per se, the other a paramilitary organization which has been called into action during the Darfur crisis. Both of them have their support and their backing from certain regions and from certain segments of the society. It is a power struggle. It is a struggle for power. It is a struggle for resources in a geographically very sensitive place, in a huge country with enormous resources. And of course, as it usually happens in such situations, the situation is complicated by its geopolitical surroundings and environment, where Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Russia, the United States, the European Union all have a role to play, an outlook and an interest in somehow bringing this whole situation to contain the situation or to aggravate the situation for that matter. So it is a very, very complicated conflict, and it is very, very difficult to understand where this conflict could be developing. But I think there is a window of opportunity now to, before the whole situation escalates, to start peace talks. But it's an extremely difficult situation that we are facing in Sudan.
James, you have been in Brussels since 1986. You've been following wars, unfortunately, in many parts of the world. I know, especially in Ukraine today. What are your views on this?
Well, from the point of view of Europe, of course, we want to see diplomacy find a solution to bring the parties together and resolve the differences. I fully agree with our member here that it's a difficult and sensitive situation when you have two powerful armies squaring off against each other. But Europe's interest is partly self-interest, because the last thing we want to see is an influx of refugees coming across the borders and causing problems within the EU. Potentially there are hundreds of thousands of people who are being displaced, and for the time being many of them are escaping to Ethiopia, to Chad, or some to the north, to Egypt. So a peaceful diplomatic solution would be desirable. However, unfortunately, the cards would appear to be stacked in favor of generating chaos. We have active within Sudan the mercenary forces of the Wagner paramilitary group, a paramilitary company, led by Yevgeny Prigozhin, who is a close associate of the president of the Russian Federation, Mr. Vladimir Putin. And I ask myself, given